Hi, welcome to Locally Sourced Spirituality. My name is John Pohl, and this episode is called Mystic Ring of Sacred Fire. A little bit about myself. I am a father of six. I have two kids who are in college. I have two who are in high school, and I have two elementary age children. So I have four boys and two girls. And my oldest daughter, one of the ones that's in college, is hosting my two youngest boys. They spent the night with her last night in her dorm room, and they just love that kind of thing. So I'm going to be going a little bit later to pick the boys up and spend the rest of the day with them. And as you can imagine, with a family of six, that much of my life is regimented, is predetermined. There are things, there are schedules, there are activities that I just have to do. So there's not a lot of wiggle room in my life. There's not a lot of mystery in my schedule. With that said, today's episode, I want to talk about going on that spiritual journey and finding that mystery, going out beyond the known and finding deeper meaning and connection in our day-to-day lives. And like I said, I call this Mystic Ring of Sacred Fire, and I call it that for a reason. I'll get to that later. At the heart of it, at the core of it, I believe that humans have this desire for this mystery, for this spiritual journey, of seeing beyond the veil of what's apparent, of what's obvious and right in front of us, and finding those deeper meanings and connections. Now, if that's not you, if you are absolutely happy with the day-to-day routine of life, and that's just the way life is, and you don't have a desire for nothing more, then that's fine. That's just not where you are in your life right now. But if you are looking for something more, you may have heard the previous episode where I invited you on this journey, that to start with, we have to know and we have to be able to connect to our deepest self, that part that is eternal. And I suggested in the last episode that perhaps a habit or a practice of journaling would be useful. You might want to go back and listen to that if you haven't heard it. But assuming that you've moved forward and assuming that this is what you want, I want to just describe some of the things that you might encounter as you move forward on your journey. Now, I've read articles, I've downloaded apps, I've read books, I've listened to audiobooks, I've purchased all kinds of products that are available on the spiritual journey. And you know what? Not one of them has brought me enlightenment. Not one of them has pierced the veil. There's a lot of people out there who talk about the spiritual experience and try to sell you things. But it's only through your experience that you're going to be able to understand truly. And I presume that since you're listening, that you may have had an experience in your life. You may have touched the eternal at some point in your life, and you have the desire for more, to go deeper and to be more connected. So there was a day several years ago. In fact, it was in January of 2004. And that was the year, or that was the month that I went on my January term when I was a freshman, beginning student at seminary. And we went down to Indiana. We went to Indiana for a spiritual retreat to the Poor Handmaids of Jesus Christ convent. I don't know which town that's in. I'm sure it's easily searched for on the internet. But we went down there, and there was an offer by our professor, by the facilitator of the retreat. Now, here's two choices. Which would you prefer? If you heard these two invitations, which one would you accept? Offer one. Do you want to join me outside in the freezing cold in northern Indiana, stand in a circle and smoke a cigar. That's option 1. Option 2, how about this invitation? Do you want to join the mystic ring of sacred fire, a tradition that has gone back for who knows when, and will continue long after you, and not many people have participated in this, but you are invited. Do you want to be a part of the mystic ring of sacred fire? And that's the invitation that I heard. I'm like, yeah, I want that. That sounds great. I have no idea what that is, but yeah. But the problem is the two invitations were exactly the same event. So we got on the bus and we were heading down, and we stopped off at a tobacco shop in northern Indiana before we got to the convent. And we all went in, and those of us who wanted to participate in this event, I guess it is. And we made our purchases, and we made our way to the convent. And it was maybe the first night or the second night, we who made our cigar purchases went out in the freezing cold in January in northern Indiana, and we stood in a circle and we talked and we smoked these cigars. Now I don't smoke. I don't smoke cigarettes or cigars or pipes or anything. I just don't smoke. And if you would have asked me with the first invitation that I said, do you want to go out and stand in a circle and smoke a cigar? I probably would have said no. So what made the second invitation more appealing? And what was appealing for me was that there was a piece of tradition that was connected to it. There was a sense of mystery connected to it. There was a sense of almost secrecy connected to it, of having the opportunity to participate in something that not everyone gets to do. And so I took them up on it. And as I look back, was it that enjoyable to stand in the cold and smoke a cigar? And no, it really wasn't. But am I glad I did it? And the answer is yes, because there was a connection with those people in that circle. And I was connected to a tradition. And I do believe it is still going on. You see, traditions help us connect. See, here I am in Michigan, and it's mid-November, and we just had our first snow. And although most of us really aren't thrilled about the snow, there's a certain energy that comes with the first snow. There's a certain bit of excitement that comes with it. And then that turns our thoughts to Thanksgiving, which is coming up very soon, and then Christmas. And so we start making these plans, and we all know what is going to happen. We know through our traditions what Thanksgiving will probably be like and what Christmas will probably be like. But on the same hand, or on the other hand, actually, we have no idea what's going to happen because life is completely different now. And it was completely different the year before. There are people who have come into the family, and there are people who are no longer with us. There are new addresses, and there are new jobs, and there's new perspective. There's been an election since last we got together, and the political landscape has changed. And so it's all going to be new, but it's all going to be the same. And so within that tension of all the same and all new, there's a bit of mystery. And we get a clue about our spiritual journey in that tension between the two. Now, if there isn't tension, if there's too much one way or the other, it doesn't usually go well. If there's too much tradition, the family member that demands that you do everything exactly the way we did it last year and is so rigid about traditions that you just can't get around it. See, when tradition is so rigid that you can't maneuver within it, then there's no room for growth. There's no room for insight. There's no room for the mystery. On the other hand, there's the other extreme when there is no tradition, and people can get upset if there's nothing that connects us to the previous event or the previous years or the time before us, and nothing to carry us forward into the time in the future. We feel a little disconnected. In fact, I had this experience a few years ago. We had a family Easter celebration, and there's a certain menu that I'm used to. It doesn't really matter what the food is, but there's a certain foods that are always there at the Easter celebration. And one year, the menu was scrapped, and we had hamburgers. And it just didn't feel like Easter. It just wasn't right. And maybe I was being too rigid. Maybe I was that person that year that says, oh my gosh, this person's being too rigid. But for me, I didn't have those anchor points. It didn't feel like any other day of the year. It just felt like a get-together where we had hamburgers. So for me, there's got to be a balance. You have to have anchor points, but you have to have freedom within that so that you can experience the mystery. And it's the mystery of the experience that can't be commodified. It can't be packaged. There's so many publishing houses that will try to sell you mystery. They will try to sell you. They'll try to sell you God in a book, but you can't find it there. You can't find the mystery there. You can't find it. It's always in the thing that you can't grasp. And there's a lot of money made on people trying to say that they can, or that they do have it grasped. But I'm here to say that you can't. And by the way, this podcast is free. And so there's even organizations. Okay, there's churches, of course. And a lot of times they fail at this. They fail at inviting people into the ministry. And there's also organizations like the Freemasons. Now, the Freemasons got some free publicity a few years ago with Nicolas Cage's movie National Treasure, and they were portrayed as the holder of these mysteries and holders of secrets, and this interconnection of people that basically are in control of everything. Well, let me tell you, I was initiated and passed and raised as a third degree Master Mason, and it's really not as cool as all that. I'm not a Mason anymore. I've left that organization, not because I'm against it, not because it was contrary to anything I believe. I left it because the energy that was required to put into that organization, the service that was needed to be given to make that a fruitful experience, I prefer to take that energy and that creativity and put it into my faith house, into my church. So, maybe that's where you are. Maybe you're a Mason, and then that's where you put your energy. Hey, that's your choice. But I just got to tell you that the Masons are heavy on tradition and very rigid, and there's, at least in the organization that I was a part of, there's no room for mystery in that whatsoever. So that's part of the problem as we go on our spiritual journey. The part of the problem is that we look to external things to find meaning. We look to things outside of us to find joy, when we're supposed to be looking inside and dealing with our internal lives and getting that straightened out. See, like I said, there's no app for the spiritual journey. I've looked. I've got on the App Store, the Apple App Store, and I've searched around, and I've downloaded meditation, contemplation, Christian, Buddhist, every sort of app you can find. They don't offer enlightenment online or in apps. It's just not the way it is. There's no mystery there. That's all formulas and algorithms. But that's what the church should be. It should be a place where you are allowed to enter into the mystery, into the unknown, where there is a healthy mix of tradition and freedom to question and to explore. Unfortunately, a lot of churches get to the point of arguing about furniture placement, I'll say, where it's the details and the programming that people spend so much time on, instead of making room for people just to experience the mystery of God. There's a story in the Bible. Jesus, it says in Mark chapter 3, then he went home, and the crowd came together again so that they would not even eat. And when his family heard it, they went out to restrain him, for people were saying, "He has gone out of his mind." And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem said, "He has Beelzebul, and by the ruler of demons he casts out demons." And he called to them and spoke to them in parables. "How can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand. And if Satan has risen up against Satan and is divided, he cannot stand, but his end has come. But no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his property without first tying up the strong man. Then indeed the house can be plundered." Seems funny that Jesus is saying that he's here to plunder a house and he's tied up the strong man, and the strong man is Satan, but I think that's what he's saying. "And truly I tell you," he says, "people will be forgiven their sins and whatever blasphemies they utter." You see, our God is for us. Our God is, as demonstrated by Jesus, here for our benefit. Jesus has come and he's tied up the strong man. This is a metaphor for he has taken away the power of the evil of this world, and he's here for us. But the thing is, Jesus, on this spiritual journey, Jesus who invites us to come and grow and be one with him, he's doing something that is out of the norm. He's doing something unusual. He's not doing what his community expects him to do. He is something new, something different. And they accuse Jesus of two false charges. One, that he's in league with demons, and two, that he's out of his mind. See, this is what people do. This is what people do when they don't understand or they're afraid. This is what people will do when you start to live an authentic life. When you do something that they don't expect you to do, they're going to be confused, and they're probably going to be afraid, and they're going to say, "What is wrong? Have you gone out of your mind? Or what's going on? You're acting not like yourself. What's going on? This is not right." You can expect that when you start on your spiritual journey. This is what Joseph Campbell in the Hero's Journey calls the threshold guardians. Okay, so we start off on this journey. We start off on this spiritual journey, and we answer the call to go, and we come across what he calls threshold guardians. And in mythology, it's some creature, some gateway, some obstacle that the hero has to overcome to be able to continue on. And many people, many seekers will stop right here. Many people will give up because the threshold guardians to the spiritual journey are too strong. Doubt and fear are very powerful forces that will keep you from moving forward on your spiritual journey. You see, we glimpse the mystery, we glimpse the goodness, the depth of the universe in so many areas of our life. And one place that I've seen it is in my deep relationships with my friends and family. See, when we can really let down our guard, when we can really be who we are with those who are closest to us, we become the most creative. We become the most free. And I believe this is what God intends for us to be. And so we read in Scripture that the marriage feast is one that is to be celebrated because it's a symbol of the marriage of the human and the divine. But we can mess that up too, can't we? Sometimes when we're on our journey, we can be so focused on our own desires and our own needs, and we can expect everyone in our lives to support us, and everyone in our lives to go along with what we want. And maybe some will do that. And maybe your partner, or maybe your friend, or maybe someone that you care about will start to sacrifice a little bit of who they are to boost your ego and to boost your journey, sacrificing their own. But that's not good. That's not good, certainly not good for them. And it's not good for you either. Because at that point, it's not the divine, it's not the mystery that's at the center. It becomes you at the center. You are not at the center. It's the mystery that you're trying to enter into. It's the journey that's at the center. See, both partners have to be able to see well beyond their own desires. Both partners in any relationship have to care for each other and support each other, but see well beyond both of those, either one of your desires, to see what is the good and right and true thing. When you expect others to make that sacrifice, they're going to start to resent you. So don't spend your energy trying to get other people to facilitate your journey. You have to be on your own journey, but it's always in the context in loving relationships with others. Because we want this. We want to live our fullest potential, right? We want to be the best of who we are, but we also want the people around us to be the best of who they are. You see, it's our desires versus our identity. See, you are not your desire because you have lots of desires. Some are good, some are bad. You might have the desire to dig wells in Africa so people can have clean water. You might have the desire to get health care for people who don't have it and can't afford it. You might have the desire to satiate your desire for alcohol because of your chemical dependency. You might have the desire to express your anger in a destructive way, but some desires are good and some are bad. But we're not our desires. What we desire is not who we are. So we have to figure out who we are and not let that desire stop us on our spiritual journey. You see, people will treat you like the person that they think you are. If they see you and they see you following your desires, the good ones and the bad ones, that's who they think you are. And if that's not you, it's up to you to show the world who you really are. What is at the core of your existence? You see, there's a better version of you than you're letting the world see right now. You see that commercial on TV. I think it's for maybe for Apple. There's a guy sitting on a couch, and then all of a sudden there's another version of that person on the couch, and he gets up and goes outside, and then it shows that person walking outside, and then it shows another version of that same person running past him. And then there's a group of that same person going for a jog, and they stop because they're tired. And then there's another person that runs right through them wearing swimming trunks, and he dives into the ocean. So I love that commercial because there's no standard of what the best is, but there's always a better version of who you are. You see, it's not cool getting locked into a system of tradition where you're locked into a particular mode of what's good and what's right and what's true. It's better to think about life as, what's the best version of me? What is my purpose in this universe? How can I get past fear and desire? How can I get past these gate guardians to be able to touch more of what is the mystery of life, of what's the true connections of life? See, it takes courage to be authentic. What if the world sees what you have and what you have to offer, and they say no thank you? See, that could hurt. If you offer your true self and the world rejects it, that could be painful. But as Joseph Campbell says, there's a few reactions to that. You can offer the world your true self, and if they say no thank you, you could say to hell with the world, and then just go back to the world, or go back to the way you were and forget about it. That's legit. Another option is you could give the world what they want, You could modify who you are and conform to what the world expects of you and live that way. That's another option. Or the third option is you can offer the world what you have anyway. Because it's not what the world wants. It's what the world needs. The world needs authentic people like you. See, fear and ignorance, they're going to try to stop you. Fear and ignorance might paralyze you. But you have to fight these enemies if you're going to be able to look beyond the veil and be who you want to be. Be authentic. Be true to who you are. Be exactly the person that you are right now, but then find the better version of it and press forward and press past fear and ignorance. You see, when we do that, we find the mystery. We find peace and we find purpose. And when we do that, we realize that we're not in competition with anybody, that we don't have to hold anyone back. And when we find that for ourselves, then we can open space for others so that they can find their authenticity. Hopefully we can do it before we figure it out for ourselves. Because we often we stifle each other and we instill fear and ignorance in others. And it makes it an ugly world. And there's too much ugliness in this world to hurt each other. So I want to encourage you to continue on this journey with me, to continue to grow spiritually. I continue to be part of a faith community, whatever faith that you follow. And if you live in Lansing or East Lansing or surrounding cities in Michigan, I invite you to come to the church I serve. I serve at Asbury United Methodist Church on Lake Lansing Road. So come on out and we'll journey together. All right. Good talking to you. And we'll talk to you next time.